So then starting with the prayers on page 1, the text or on the screen in front of you. From the heart of the Saviour of 100 deities of Tashita, on the peak of a cloud resembling a clump of extremely white fresh curd, King of the Dharma, omniscient Losandrapa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, an aligned-throned lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru smiles with delight. Supreme field of merit from the mind of faith, please abide for 100 eons to spread the teachings. Your holy mind has the intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, I prostrate. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incenses, lights, scented waters, and so forth. Oceans of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, and especially those opposite 3 vows that I've collected from beginning this time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the 8 worldly concerns. Saviour, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect, pure, holy Gurus, from billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion, the sky of the Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I've collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of the perfect, pure Losandrapa's teachings to shine forever. Sashi poiki shoshi me tok tamri rabling shi ni de gempati sangye shingdu Miteowa Yido Konamdak Shila Chupashok. By the merits of having offered this mandala to the Lama Tsongkhapa and his 2 sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Losandrapa, who had the morality of an eminently pure way of life, was courageous in the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of the 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamiya Tayami. By the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one into my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of the tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, or imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. And then we recite this on page 8 3 times. Mime se we te te chen re zi, dreame kempe wampo jumpo yan, dumu palu jong we san we dang, gan chen den pen san kan song kapa, lo zan drable sabla so wa de, mime se we te te chen re zi, dreame kempe wampo jumpo yan, dumu palu jong we san we dang, gan chen den pen san kan song kapa, lo zan drable sabla so wa de, Mime ze we te te chen re zi, dreame kempe wampo jumpo yang, dumo palu jo we san we dang, gan chen tempen zen ken song kapa, lo zan drable sabla so wa de. And then prayer for the swift return of Lamas of Rinpoche on page 9. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losan, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of this, accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Blessed through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of three jewels, and the great waves of the bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
Chedan Tsoji Chonula Chanju Bardu Dani Kyabsun Che Dagi Cheshe Jeban Dag Rolan Peshe Sanjin Drupara Sho Sanji Chedan Tsoji Chonula Chanju Bardu Dani Kyabsun Dagi Cheshe Jeban Dagi Rolan Peshe Sanjin Drupara Sho Sanji Chedan Tsoji Chonula Chanju Bardu Dani Kyabsun Dagi Cheshe Jeban Dagi Roland Pesce Sanjin Rubar Show Kanki Tuzinizon, Tawa Tamje Pambish Tambichun, Denzibu Kodon Tela Chancel, Amalai Kenologic Tribunda Mikino, Rogonji Danon Chizoma Tamjik, Dagi Chutendo. Good morning, everyone. Shopper Dele.
Shopper Dele.
Yeah, of course.
Oh.
당보 먼저 cousin 사파산텔라 피터키 먼저 John Thumrum Gomtanti Chick Kijit on thing on the Dordich Shugos Lavrasra.
So in the previous session, Peter has asked a question about the dissolution process, and I promised to talk a little bit more detail. So
Yes. Adichdangi Anzuta Dodanga Ni Chigioras number Sanji, the Sanji Chudley and Dodanga Ni Chechini. Then the zoo dindi that you come Gavirambadi and in Ganani turned ever Tindiji Chagdosra.
So the Buddhist teaching in general can be categorized into Sutrayana and Vajrayana practice, and many of the meditation practices are in fact derived or rather taught in the Vajrayana system.
The Nanzung Haku Goyadodi Dodanga Kichu Yamle Kandrajik Chevainaya. And she moving the Sultan Jargoyadik Tun Jan Drogoyadik Kichimushuch Chagores. Penan Docho in Yamle Chevan, she Dembani Lam Tashi in Devukunis and Laguyorosra. And she Dembani Namsha Pigit moving the Ludi, Shuji Kichimuch Chagores.
So therefore, whether it is the practices associated or associated with the Sutrayana or practices associated with Vajrayana, it is really important to make sure that our practices really aligns with the fundamental reality, the truth. So therefore, in the Sutrayana system, there is a kind of categorization of the true truth as a foundation, and based on the two truths, then comes the path of wisdom and method. And then by practicing the path and wisdom, then there is the fruition of true exalted bodies.
Tinanshing dachi ngaki nyamne ya doini sheshaba di da goe yinba da di tola ya dachi nembe soro jabchinira chihondi ten ngubi nilu senamadu piki shi nitsula pa jarchini ani gom gyawandi nganzu tamawaji kandrachini kigiyore kandrachini shigiyore and my shiundigi ani chinganzu subu gi zubu ma nyamchan rodan jorada zubu manzu lu chashila ya mi nawa na chi lu ani yi odidi kandrachin ma nyamgo dogore sech kandrachin nyamgo the dogore sech di nganzu ma shi kongi tinji chiwi rumba di gom yagi nitsu shigora sara.
So, given the fact that the practices pertaining to Sutrayana should be based on the reality of the truth, similarly, the practices pertaining to Vajrayana should also be underpinned or based on the fundamental reality. So therefore, the practices of Vajrayana should be based on the foundation of Sutrayana. So having said that, the meditation practices associated with Vajrayana are kind of done in the process of how an ordinary being undergoes the process of birth and death, and then when the death happens, or rather when the dissolution occurs, our sense consciousness gradually dissolve into one another. So therefore, it is a process of how our sense consciousness, or rather the gross sense consciousness, dissolve into one another.
Tadi kharere sandi nganzugi ta drubja dirwa drubja di tawada tamjin kimbi komba lagdo daji nga sanga doji tebi lamla ya labchini and penata chig yedam sandi chig sum kanrongi ani daken dungela soba ani de gomni drongin jimba na miyud kharere sana jaw doji chang kodru yak cheti chigora sra chidangi di kansa ombu numbu ani chik chö mado samya menge ten menge majing injin ba na ani nganzu luden dela ya jawdo chang kundrup to yagi nganzu luden dela nuba chi yoris imbayna nganzu doji gi tuzo mang chia di chö mahim bala ya tang sha yo banza nganzu se ni seton chi la ya jawdo chang kundrup de khabur wasra tadi khabu imbayna ya ni kewa gyunchini 단단 난신기 소소가 몇번 여봐 아니 지금 뒤수 뛰는지는 제토야 난신지는 봐 아니 로바이나 개와 주루 순절라 야도 장고 군주 투그레스 어디서 거라서 다 개와 주루 순절라운디 개와니 개와 균이 먼저 로야기 차시지 된 거다서 개와니 개와 로야 차시 된 온디 개와 니차니 개와 침말아 봐참 잘온디 디니 빠라라얀 참 저비 내급들이야 하장그 기준 붙이고 그랬어. 성로 땅 두고 해야지. 개원 디기. 그봐. 먼저 류기 아니 개원 디기 다지 류기 잡아줘야지. 네가 용수 줘봐 냠시니. 아니 류디 샤니 남시 파 아니 개원 치말아 봐풀 깬섬 되라. 아니 이 일로 돌아야 아니 성로 코르투고 해야지. 백이시 뭐지 니 코르투고 봐나 깨워치면 덴롤 깨워들이야 태숨 거래요 말이스 끼투고 그랬어 이제 딘지기 체도 아니 종시 팀비르마디 곰고야 쪼 디레샤스다로
So, so as far as an individual practitioner is concerned, our ultimate aim or goal is to achieve liberation or complete enlightenment. So therefore, in order to achieve that state, we practice the Vajrayana path by relying on the self-generation or a front generation of one particular deity. So based on that, an individual practitioner is aspiring to actualize the state of Vajradhara. So therefore, um, our body has the potential to actualize this state. However, regardless of having the potential, we as ordinary beings tend to dedicate or spend most of our time on things that are not directly related with the practice. So therefore, um, it becomes kind of difficult to attain a complete state of Vajradhara on one single lifetime. However, our body has the potential, if we dedicate enough, put enough dedication, then there is a possibility of attaining the state of Vajradhara within 16 lifespans. So therefore, if it takes 60 lifetimes to attain the state of Vajradhara, we have to make plan accordingly. So therefore, since it takes 16 lifetimes, the transition from one lifetime to the next becomes really crucial here. And then when that transition happens, then it's really crucial to have a proper state of mind when the transition happens. So therefore, when we die or when the gross consciousness cease to exist, the functionalities of the functions of a gross consciousness gradually cease to exist. And then when that happens, it's really important to make sure that we leave some imprints on the subtle mental consciousness. So therefore, the meditation on the dissolution process becomes very important.
인자다 난중가 기토야 소소 지금 니바 강요기 도스 검자야 상무단야 도서 하장 가와상부로 왔으라 간선단도 승안자다지 아니 니마 론로 뚜니 아니 직상아 그 최슈 아니 상아 그 최고 돌아 상로단 아니 디 코로지티 라바이나 동원이 아니가 가와상부레샤 삼삼지 라 단 잠블리 나로라야 단 딜리 사가지 차와야 아지데 제문도 삼비 샘나 초질레 투그로 왔으라 아니 가와상부 임바 소르그레스 고 카야 마라 초 카야 메나 아니 지 미치다난 생기 직 타다 센센치야 직 규벤주 함보서야 딘디기 차긴스케요 말아니 미다지 아니 냥보 메교로지 미텔라 마츠즈 소르시그로서 간선의 규벤주는 케어 말이 민이 케어 말이다 직 소소소소 비 삼로 샘나라야 삼다해도 마도 케 메디기 아니 나초문도 삼 소르시그 임바이나 디 코아지라바이나 nga kiburesha ngarang samdang de yakshuresha samsam choji legel dilleba ina yabu yosares ro chu chingin ting ibor legu dosro
So with regard to that, it is really fortunate for us to have the opportunity to contemplate and to have the opportunity to practice Vajrayana path. So if we could think in that way, if we could think that we have the opportunity, if you could think that we are really fortunate to have the opportunity not only to receive Vajrayana teachings, but also to have the opportunity to practice Vajrayana path, then it will really reinforce our commitment to practice. Otherwise, if you do not have that kind of understanding, then the Vajrayana practices may not immediately contribute to our mundane pursuits. It may not kind of contribute to achieve much on our mundane pursuits. Therefore, one might tend to think irrelevant and unfit for the society. So therefore, if you could think, we are really fortunate to have the opportunity to practice the Vajrayana path, then we will really feel relevant and kind of feeling satisfied with our practice.
Adinza ta pena nima chilang ani pena yidam doji jigshe doji ki dagi tsarchi gomgu yabana dagi tsarchi gomgu yabana chanju semdi tsarsum soraji manta gomgu das tombani dobi sherab dia tsarsum dagi tsarchi gomgu na tombani di tsarsum chanju semdi tsarsum ninji tsarsum ninjon tsarsum kanji dilipen dabgyur manganchi tolaya samdangwa pe kechen uchagores teni pigi tachi simchen 탐지기 chedonge sanji komaji matonda 자원이는 지금도 삼비기 서로지 레고다 딘디 서로지 토니 아니 다기에도 공부인 바나 하장 그 편도 친구 차고 왔어레스 로 예담도 지식이 따지 아 원도 냠슬랭게 바나 데네페 개발 친구 두고 왔어레스 로
For instance, if a practitioner of Yamantaka sadhana, Yamantaka self-generation practice, so in order to practice the self-generation one time on a daily basis, it should presupposes the practice of bodhicitta and realization of emptiness and realization at least 3 times per practices of Yamantaka sadhana. So it means that we really need to, the practices of bodhicitta and compassion should be even more than the practice of sadhana itself. So with that, we really need to think we really need to reinforce our wish to attain complete Buddhahood for the sake of sentient beings.
다들 다두 곰체니 테니 카르고 땅간수 세표적어레스 세표디 따치 세표고 여바디 앵간수 신고거레스라 다양 아기어치마다 로까마 카시 따추소 카시 지기다 땅간 아니 세디 똥로도 삼비 텐데 아니 곰쳔버도 졸이야 곰갸니 딱 균딩 곰갱엔 도졸이야 소바디 텐데 용구여서레스 다디 용위 갑들라 드네 소소 자벨라마 곰야로 소바 아니 찬주스는 인지라 똥바니 또베 셔러 곰야로 소바 디든베 아니 믹스 까네 리버 드름치니 로 제트구여레스 단단한서 티케어 치마라 로고르스나 깨지티나다 로고르스 라우르데이나야 다지 겨르무지 대야기 레와지 마도 다다니는 로고레 삼비게 서로디요 말아왔어. 데메디기 아니 피긴 로비 차와디 제투고 말아왔어. 대야기 차와지 마도 로야기 차와디 제투고 말아왔어. 안 로야기 차와디 마 제마도 로샤바나 아니 냥가 차고레스. 디치그랜도 왔다라.
So therefore, at the time of the death, we really need to have the realization that we are the dissolution process happening, or in other words, when death occurs, it is really crucial to have the understanding of that process. And the great meditators definitely have the understanding of the process of dying when that actually happens. And when you have the realization, then there is a better possibility of either kind of, thinking about one's teachers, one's masters, or contemplating about emptiness and so on and so forth. So otherwise, for ordinary beings, um, although we have the understanding that we may die or we have to kind of depart from this world, but we always tend to make plans to live longer. And if we have the tendency to live long, then we may not be able to make kind of preparation for the death process. And then if we die without any realization or without any preparations, then it becomes an issue.
딘디지 간다지 문진 투그래 해야 된다. 단 딩문진 투기하기 쳐도 아니 딱 세마도다 뭐 아니 고민한테 뭐를 쳐야 되는다서라. 자변 간도 치딱 아직 끼어 치말아야 아니 로야기 딱 센다 망부 용거라 들어. 그냥 간도 망은 쳐야지 고가와 차서도 왔어라. 대한고 끼어 치면 로야기 땅센 그랬어. 아니 동발에 예마망부터 아니 소도서 비 아니 야라나 지 비모 식도서 나대야 아니 아직도 그 사만 딱 땅세레스 겨치말이야 따자란 지금 요번 로고다 세기 다더디 땡고레스라 칼라 카르세와는 만체서르지 라 니만 한심문도 하서라 그 사만 땅세 차고레스 다 이번에는 땅세 개체슈디 비기게다 튜름 감니 셰샤와 디다 땅센다 겨치말은 드비 당 예슈 땅센디 아니 튜름 감니 셰비게 땅센디 차고라스라 어디르다 디곰고 스탄다
So when that happens, there are, of course, it is important to recognize that the process is happening, and to recognize that, then the introduction about the dissolution process becomes relevant here. And although there are many external signs of dying, or when death occurs, there could be many external signs. For instance, there are, if you look among ourselves, we all have kind of these signs, such as having gray hair, or having wrinkles on the face, or having joint pains when you stand up. So all these actually, or indigestion, all these are in fact indirect signs of death. However, the closest kind of sign of death is the signs that occurs or that we see when the dissolution process happens.
이제다 틈으름 드시고 그랬더라. 단다 로총이 갑둘라 만주다지 미 나와 지르 이기 템바이나 시부 미기 시바이나 시부 요라스다 디름비친 아니 마 냠용 그랬어. 그러다 조디 원싱가를 잘친 원싱가기 아니 율 비긴 통약이 세차다 마소나 아니 율 리비 다 리비 차져라 다 디마 아니 슈총로 거레스 단단간도 율 리기야기 아니 디 아니 비기기 류긴 종시기 땡치치네 아니 류튜브 아니 류를 땜비 왕보다 다 직자를 써봐 딘디 터네다 아니 온비시바 디기디다 율세부지 통과라서로 단 남식이 땡 징인기 종아시세야지 사주멜론 종아식 땡치비기 니버디 아니 슉총을 줘 디까다다 아니 틈름디 시고레스 틈세야디 베나 사이 감기 아니 원시기비 땡치비 사이 감 원시기비 땡치야다 니버지어라서 니버드마 냐원디 아니 사출라템스 아니 추 감기 원시 땡치비 니버드마 냐원디 아니 추멜라템스 아니 매 감기 원시 땡치비 니버드마 냐원디 아니 멜롱라템스 롱기 감기 원시 땡치비 니버드마 냐원디 아니 롱남실라템스 아니 남시도 스치니 깨워치말로 표드라야 더 틈름디 디시고라스더라 틈틈세는 딜라고라스
So when the dissolution process occurs, what happens is that the potential of sense consciousness to um, to perceive its object will gradually diminishes, and usually the four elements serve as a basis for kind of serve as a basis for our body, and then based on that the different sense consciousness occurs. However, when we are young, the potential of the sense consciousness and mental consciousness is very clear. The potential to see its respective object is very clear. However, gradually its potential will start slowly kind of deteriorates. So therefore, the four element really serve as a foundation or serve as a kind of a substratum for sense consciousness to arise. So therefore, when the potential of the earth element gradually diminishes to serve as a substratum for sense consciousness, then we call it the dissolution of earth element to water element. So similarly, when the potential of the water element to serve as a substratum for sense consciousness diminishes, then the water element dissolve into fire element, and fire element dissolve into wind element, and then gradually wind element also dissolve into consciousness, and that finally the subtle consciousness will transfer, or rather go to the next rebirth. So this is basically the dissolution process is the dissolution of one element to another element when its potential to serve as the substratum for sensory consciousness gradually diminishes.
다들 담보 다 미기 몽보디 다숙 zungpongi zungpongdelaya sugin pombo 아니 남경한테 디시거다 강사스 라운디 퐁봉할 때는 따빙아레스 다 간라 딱사기 퐁봉하죠라 zugi pombo 소르 pombo 뒤시기 pombo 뒤시기 pombo 남바시비 퐁봉하세 아니 퐁봉하름기 마 팀바 아니 냠비 딱시 태인 거레스
So generally, the so-called person or individual is composed of, or rather, individual or person is an aggregation of five skandhas or five aggregates, and when the dissolution process happens, the the five skandhas or the five aggregates also kind of dissolve or kind of diminishes its potential. Yes.
모래질래서 다드니 zugi pombo dilaya 만냐면 zugi pombo 나눠 가리어스라운디 아니 미기 왕보 나웨 왕보 나예 왕보 지 왕보 루기 왕보 나가로 아니 숭봉 그난 뉴여라스라 데 참마 냠비 딱리레고 토마델야 zug pigita zugi pombo rabadi ma nyamondi ani chik karso ta chik ani yangla lo soba ani chik chong ro ya da manzu thong da te pena mi chik ta lo ship chung ab chuk chuk ka la ya mi dharma jin bi khabdula ani zugbo chembo top chembo teni ya le ondi ge ani ransing ma chong ro da 마 쿠르다 아니 수부디 총저다 디난싱이다 라 아니 지 양라라 소바 아니 차르줘야 아니 총저야 아니 지 슈메바 차야 잘라지 케바이나 아니 지 라반다스 야데라 소바 zugbulaya balance mejo tedi chaayang da di loya gyandi ti sungbu nyam bi tagres sungbu nyam dogors te dela shu ji a ches ke mandasra
So when the dissolution process happens, the five aggregates will also kind of dissolve, or rather deteriorate its potential. And the first aggregate is the aggregate of form, the form aggregate. And form aggregate is consist of eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, and body consciousness. And then when the form aggregate diminishes, the potential of this sense consciousness also gradually diminishes. And then when that happens, there are several different signs from the body itself. For instance, when we are young, when we are kind of our body is way stronger, we could lift things easily. Our body has the potential to do work very hard. But gradually, when we getting older, our kind of strength will diminishes. So basically, all these are indication of the kind of dissolution of the potential, and this is all a rather a natural process of as a part of the dissolution itself.
enanganzo sugi pombo dita chitangdora ta di chashila ombonga dile gorasra ombonga di thamodrenda ta ombonga tembigi ani namshi yungore ente dusi yungore dinza ani pombo ragba di sungbo ragba di nyambigi tangsen di nganzo ngus tontu yarochi ta ombora zug thamodi pena miki ombodi nganzo tontuyo marada sukcha zugong zuyimbala ngong cha deres ta din nyambi ta kariyores laundi mikshe de massive ndores migi number shiva de massive ndores migi number shiva massive ndre gigen kares no ombodi nyambi ta res
Yes. So when we talk about the aggregate of form aggregate, there is the kind of gross aggregate, form aggregate, and subtle form aggregate. So the gross form aggregate consists of our physical body, and when the potential of our gross physical body diminishes, its signs or its indications are quite evident for us to behold. But rather, the sense consciousness are considered as the most subtle kind of form, and it is quite difficult for us to realize the realize how their potential is diminishing. For instance, when the I sense consciousness diminishes its potential, then when the I sense power diminishes its potential, then the one indication could be our ability to perceive object, or the ability of the I consciousness to perceive its object will also diminishes.
다 단단히 짓던 게막 대시디로 단 대시디 고쳐서는 디츠 넘겨내는 소소 간다지 검구 여메디 아니 단 딘디레는 딘디 용거 딘디 디즈는 딘디 용거 삼바디 담 아니 샘라마 검이야 들어서 이게단도 딘디 단 대시 자야 들어로
So right now I'm only kind of giving an introduction about how the different dissolution process will happen, and after you understand the dissolution process, then we must kind of try to implement them into our practice.
다들 중본 팀비 따라 아 배세 코란한다 쇼여 말되네야 단 냠뇽징 갈sun 거스라디 죄 류를 가서 단들 류를 죄여로 죄디 아니 냠로 그레스 라 냠로 그레스 다죄 냠이야 디야 아니 빼나 죄 냠온디 만이 깜바니야 진니 아니 죄도 도로 그레스 라 담보 빼네 깜바디 타무슈 차그르고 예비 소와지 소월 얘기였어. 어두 진짜 아니 닌가 받을래 아 되니 아니 이 지중니 마 용체 타마들이야 류 트디 먼저 닌카라야 트 데마도 아니 류 차시 용수 줘봐 아니 장모간을 내려 버렸어. 다들 하장기배 아니 베길라야 다 체섬 참몽원도 줘라야 차원갈 다든지 차고라서
Yes. So there isn't much kind of description about the external signs of the physical dissolution in the text, but according to the meditators, when they share their experiences, what they say is that as in kind of when our body form kind of aggregate diminishes or dissolves, the heat or the heat of our body gradually reduces, and that will also start from our feet, and the heat slowly kind of diminishes, and then it will come towards our heart. So therefore, when if the heat of our body is reducing or rather diminishing, and then at the last moment, it will all come and concentrated around the heart area. So that is how the dissolution of form occurs.
지난다 가서 좀 세나 nga chunjung kolara chunjung ra tanga lo peshe lo chupshi singire o dindi kabdula nganzu kimzi jorda kimzi di kunzu de la pawa ni yorda nganzu pela yongura ta dindi yongura ta pawa gemba di nganzu pawa da ngi pawa da lo su chikpa rojere kumila ngawa sigiro kumpe yagbo mepe sangbu ane o dindi chitsigor ani nimachilo kon nago oresa nganzu kimzero da ko ngaon des nagdu sla so nga simjin cho jora ngi semna wa ya ta ko shiro gre samsam ra nga shu cho ji le nyo dingi khadu ne je gu dro nga ri gan la ya ro ya ta nga shiro gre ko nga di cho shu le dinga sebu shu ji nga gonda ta ri gan la simjin cho jora amma gonda ma ta nima khashi ji ko ne nima ji nga ma simjin ma ten ma na ondi pesi chuzu nga wa twa ingire 남시 자무여 말했더니 찍하소리지리 이나 그 아니 빠발이야 안당이 깜빡시오 캬기도스 이 깜빡시오 캬기도스 그 딜라 아니 빠와기 비기기 항안 소리지 나는 메시아지네 그 깜빡이 차오소도 다 드드든 게 간식 말하다 다 남신 자무여 말해 이번에 코란 그 처벌이야지 그 깜빡이 자무 쇼차로요 아니 빠발로 그 깜빡이 쇼캬게 됐어라지 깜빡 주나 깜빡 자무 딘지기 쇼 자무여 말더라 코란 샘나라 깜빡이 쇼캬게 소화지 다 주고가 자살을 용 배샤때 드니지 아두 땅가 띄원디 드니가시 니 텐선이야 갑 드디 거기다 아니 수부기다 아니 팀으로 세야 뭐니 콜아야 zubu 장위기 아니 깜번이 트 도구여 바디 아니 디니 코 니마 카시마 데모 코 종르다 말 딘디 가서다 뇽아서를 종료예스라
Yes. Here I wanted to share an anecdote related with the dissolution of heat. As far as the dissolution of heat process is concerned. When I was around 14 years, I was in Tibet, and that time we have a neighbor by the name Ngawang. He's a friend of my father, and then that time one occasion he was really sick, and he was, of course, on bed, and then during that time I had to kind of, as a nomadic, I have to go herd and graze the animals on the mountains. So when I went to graze the animals, I thought, oh, now that poor Ngawang, since he's very sick, he may die. I have a very kind of strong feeling that he may not live very long, given his situation. And then I spent the whole day on the mountain grazing the animal. And by the evening, when I returned home, I kind of went to see him. And that time, he informed my father that his feet seems, he's a feeling that his feet is getting very cold. So therefore, my father is trying to put a fire near his feet. So strangely, ironically, that time the weather was not very cold. And then when we touch his feet, it doesn't look very it doesn't, touch. When we touch, it doesn't look very cold. But still, he had that sensation that his feet is really getting very cold. And then later, when I come to the monastery and when I kind of studied about the Vajrayana and especially the dissolution process, I came to realize that when the dissolution happens, when the dissolution of the heat occurs, it really occurs from the feet itself. And then that the person had a sensation that his feet is getting cold. So then I realized, oh, that time he must be undergoing a dissolution of the heat.
되는 the deep meeting it 세우 쇼지 통으로 당에 세미나를 안 콜라 가드는 년고 잡로도 년고도 제로 치다죠 년고도 가드는 콜라 부자자데 그런 거지 네 로봇 신경이스러 더디 코란 삼라야 란신 코마테 사르도 삼성 소화질 얘기도 하스러 더 팀으로 시험인데 다가라인 거다 소소 마스 양라 사르고 예비기 소화질 얘기です사기요 말도 예산은 대대거든요 샘나는 마치 마사르도 삼성기 아니 소화질 레이어레스 갑투디 아니 상감디 사이감디 가서 다 zugpunti ta timbik tak zugi pombo di nyambik tak ma yang la sagdu gibi soje legores roda duzu nisu di dandani semna lo la yang samtu bai na pigi tangzen mus chung di en soso gi ngunzin chi tu gores yang tanga dus ani rimbi chin tanga gyobun roya rendo asambi ani ngeba ni tu ya di dandani gom gores lavrada.
Yes. um, so so that person, when he was sick, and another thing is that he often would request his attendant to kind of fix the pillow that is placed over his behind. So he would always request us to attend to put more pillows because he has a feeling that he's somehow going to kind of fall down. He has that kind of sensation. So that is an indication of the dissolution of the earth element, or the kind of dissolution of the form, a body, because when the dissolution of earth element occurs, the individual has a sensation that he is somehow falling down or submerging or something like that. He has that kind of sensation. That is why he would always request his attendant to put more pillow for him. So that's one indication. And then the whole reason of introducing this dissolution process is really to be able to recognize that when the actual death happens, you should be able to recognize that it is occurring. So therefore, for an individual practitioner, we kind of should contemplate the dissolution process as part of our practice.
Teni kab dudi kola karyon orsana. Ta kanshi nga dudi chunjong ordine ti ku nedan de lengi semro shuji te do adaro. Ani konzo nangla chawaji ketanda. Shabden shingi chawaji ketan. Chawadi mingla ya loden sir loden gen loden se ketani gen digin dembon denso. Dembon den sabi jela tangi pawa ko chobonze ko tile dedar ta pembu shu chons demba de kola pembu shu chons ko dini lagdo koran semna la shu chik ani demba de yadi sik tanda da ko shu ha ko yo maresra ngisam ha ko yo mare imainen demba di kola ya shu ji pembi ki sowa chik cheyores tinza re dindi chong yores taro dindi chong yores.
So, when that person, when he was, on the deathbed, although I was very young during that time, but still I could recollect, this situation very clearly. So one occasion, they invited a monk by the name Genlotin to chant some prayers, to recite some prayers, and then he did the prayers. And maybe he may not be understanding the meaning of the prayers much, but the patient shared that the recitation, when he heard the recitation, it really gives him so much kind of relief, and he felt very kind of he finds some kind of solace by hearing the recitation.
Tadi karesena ta sukbu yung su tsokbu nipa nyam drogo res. Nipa nyam drogo digi ta karsawa ta chik ta rewa chesa di ngonegi ta chik di negab su manzula ya ngonegi gyab tungi di chöd mato meba insan yen kangi jang ta nganzu gyacha gyatamba labi te yen kangi jang ani pento meba di siwura wasarwa sen dile yobi gyupenjo kandaji yobani ya shindruwe kadle sosole penba di chöd kona insan ani chöd daji koba ina shiuji semla ya penbu yungu yosarayas. kewa di zoka lamun chi negabsu chu digi pembo masu kewa chima kewa saba jila yang tsam joya dila yang ani tsi di chega lamu ani chu nedun jiki susu gi semla ya chik tre tuba na digi kewa chima la ya pengo res ta ngi samna dire shasirwa
So the reason behind why he find kind of, by hearing the sounds of the recitation, he find so much to kind of relief, is that when the dissolution process occurs, when death happens, then at that time, all the kind of mundane things really can't do much. They don't they can't help us much, and it's the only dharma that could really give us some kind of confidence or give us some solace. So therefore, since it's the only dharma that could give us some strength to deal with the situation, therefore, hearing the recitation could give him so much kind of relief.
pe 찾아와나 다 두서도 되고 pe 찾아와나 nganzu ame ngal ne ma kema thagdo amala thubaina ta shuji phengora da ro ame wama di bedi lab go mar khabdu ame wama tong thugora da sosul phemba di kona imba di imba inza pyugirang sing ti ingora sro tin nansing gi chiga lama delaya chibi negobsu 아니 펜번 바식디 최드 마도 매반자 아니 최고 내든지 제가 한모델이야 젠투바 쌈투바 고투바 딘디지 여바나 다 디기 쇼지기 펜도 여반자 안 단단히 딘디기 치위 내가서 간다서 연구 연맥이 아니 삼로드 단단히 깨치네 아니 치워디 원트 두겠지 치위 내가 치기 여봐도 원트 두 얘기 쳐도 아니 팀름디 시고 살았다로 팀름디 시고도 있다.
For example, at the time of the birth, the young child, without having any training, would immediately be able to realize kind of going towards the drinking the milk of the mother. So that's without any training, the child would immediately kind of do that as a factor. So because at that time there is kind of a realization for the child that this could kind of benefit him or her, the child. So similarly, at the time of death, since it's only dharma that could really benefit us, therefore it's really crucial for us to realize the situation. So therefore, if we understand the dissolution process, and when the actual dissolution process occurs, we will be able to recognize that the dissolution process is happening. And if we realize the dissolution is happening, then it will help us to think properly. So therefore, if you could think properly, then it will also kind of benefit for us to benefit our kind of transition from this to the subsequent lives.
Tadini zumbong pena timbi talaya tachi lugun dan nyam royala soba ani top nyam royala soba ando sama di ani karso tachi zumbong di timbi tagres timram tires tadi negabso ani jongan shila jabana sai kam timbi tags ta jongna dindi shegora zara sai kam 간지 아니 수기 폼부디 니바디다 지단당 간주 수기 폼부 깨바니 젠다 아니 교로고 여데나야 다 란싱기다 간주 미 체제저다 로든지 게쳐다 야마슨 삼다 미 체제로저도 어디 다 체존이 아니 신롱에들라 딱디 참말레고레스 즉 체조 아니 즉양 카시 리그도 피쇼 아니 나차 나르체니 쇼직베 아니 리드스 아니 세 마조고는 리그도 냠르야다 나치왕기 요라 누zul라야 딱 디용야 돼 아니 디스 카부요레스 양치 짱왕 그 돈이 신중한 누zul라 딱 디용기요 말레스 아직 디마힘비다 란싱기 아니 신중한들라 아니 딱 디기 레고레스
Yes. Therefore, when the dissolution of form skanda, form aggregate occurs, one indication is that our complexion will be will become more dull, and then of course our strength will be deteriorate. So this is referred as the dissolution of the form skanda, or form aggregate, or the dissolution of the earth element. And for someone who is undergoing a natural death, it is quite easy for them to recognize or realize the dissolution process. Otherwise, sometimes if we die because of prolonged sickness, or if we undergo a kind of a sudden death, so in such cases, it is quite difficult to perceive, to realize the dissolution process. So therefore, if somebody undergoes a natural death after living for a long time, then it is quite easy for them to realize the dissolution process.
디니 아니 먼저 사이캄 아니 추캄 팀비타스 추캄 팀원디기 아니 서로 대도 따뉴스음기 아니 단단 간주 서로 용해줘라 서로 용해 숙줘라 아니 디기 숙제디 냠로 그래스 디 숙제디 냠로 서로 대도 따뉴스음 그게 로 원시 거기 서로 대도 따뉴스음기 아니 서로 마녀와 아니 이시 거기 서로 대도 따뉴스음기 서 아니 대도 마녀야 대도 용해 니버드 마냠로야지 디 네거스 비기 감지난 아니 추캄 충캄기 남식이 땡집이 니버데 냠로 그래스
So, so the earth element dissolve into the water element, and at that time the the indication is that the form body kind of, it has some indication on the body, physical body itself. And then next, the water element also dissolves. And then when the dissolution of water element occurs, the time our ability to feel the different sensations of pleasure, pain, and so on and so forth, they will also gradually diminishes. And then our ability to sense, or rather our ability of feeling diminishes. That is an indication of the dissolution of water element.
더 충컴의 냥원디 남중한서 아니 지 카나나라야 아니 추용야당 아니 제이나 균댕고 비 아니 추코네 대지거라서 두수 용으로 와서서 제 강부차로야 카 강부차로야 소바 아니 차대 용으로야 소바 아니 저 하장 교전 차 유고요 말차 용으로 왔다로 아니 지 잡상 파벨로 소바 용으로야 아니 두수 참을로 갈스나 아니 추kam도 냠비기 따그레스
So when the water dissolution of the water element occurs, then the kind of the liquids in our body slowly start to reduce, and that time our mouth feels our mouth becomes dry, and if when our mouth becomes dry, that is basically an indication of the dissolution of water element.
디 네거스 페나 암조그 드라코야디야 숙총 드고레스
And then during that time, the ability of the hearing sensation, hearing also diminishes.
그랬더니 일단 배생안주 제막이 사편바텔라 양자 냄비 잡고 사람은 이 찬상한지 데리다 로서 말했어. 그래서 누스타데디 가서 나 기부 마시나 뒤뒤진 시행이나 말아.
So, I think we may need another day to complete the entire topic. We won't be able to cover the entire thing in this session.
수기 풍부, 소연 풍부, 다 뒤시기 풍부세. 뒤시기 풍부 냠비기 딱. 먼저 열로 전부 레온디다 아니 지 전부 망부 지 제로더라. 아니 배나 지 미밍라 소바. 아니 춘중 콜에 나토를 심샤규디 아니 규rum부데 야렌다라. 단다 싸바지 나토를 심규디 교보 제로더라. 디야 아니 뒤시기 풍부라야 아니 냠구지 테비 딱렌도 asra 아니 간삼 젤야지 아니 지 총바 김지기 아니 미 마텐라 소바 초보 초모 미 마텐 간삼 젤 소수 자다기 미나 마텐 어딘지 차도거스 간삼 젤 자다 코는 고 마시거든지 다 셴바도 파샤네로 아니 소수 파마이나 고 마싱인지 다 디카르스니 아니 뒤시기 풍부디 아니 냠도거스
So after dissolution of the form aggregate and feeling aggregate occurs, then the dissolution of discrimination or perception happens. And then when that occurs, our ability to remember things will kind of diminishes. For instance, if we memorize something at the young age, of course, it's easy for us to kind of remember and recollect that. But if we were to memorize something new, then we tend to forget more as we ages. So there is an indication of the dissolution of perception or discrimination, and then at some cases, an individual feels even difficult to remember the name of one's family members, one's partner, or even one's parents. So all these are basically an indication of the dissolution of discrimination or perception.
다드니 뒤시기 풍부디 아니 냠비기 딱 지금 고교자야로 소보다 아니 자와치야로 소비기 아니 니바디 메바 간섬질이야 소소야 랑고 상바이나야 라마투야 아니 라비기 피기디 랭고 상바이나 라비기 파 랭가 드로고 상바이나 라바야 캬마투야 아니 지금 고주 구고 상나 아니 구마투야 타마지 미 파수 따고 상나 미 거래 자마투 디기 아니 용구여레스 딘 뒤식 부모님이 딱 차고레스
So when the dissolution of aggregate of perception or discrimination occurs, at that particular time, our ability, our physical ability will diminishes. So during that time, we won't be able to kind of, move much. Even though we may want to kind of, hold something, we may not be able to lift our hand. And if we want to look here and there, we may not be able to kind of move our eyes, or if we, so therefore at that time, it's the ability of our physical body to make movements will slowly deteriorate.
딘디기 다치 딱다 난기 딱라 소 마메고다 제망아스다 난기딱 걸렸다 엔데스 치카시세치 아니 로트나 제초로 와서 간지 치 딱도서 아니 종원시 템버스는자 왕봉아 템버스는자 와나 지 초원 두신 남바시분 부모가 템버스는자 팀비기 아니 치 딱도서 가르가리 연구위에메디 아니 샘랑 네바 약부 제토바나 무스 피기 용이 갑들라야 아니 문진 제토야게 개바 연구라서
So, so therefore, when the dissolution process occurs, there are not only external indications that what we're just discussing, when the dissolution of the four element occurs, or when the dissolution of the five aggregate occurs, there are both external and internal signs. So probably in the next session, we'll discuss more about the internal indications or internal signs. But today, we have just covered a little bit about the external indications. And then if we kind of understand the external indication and internal indications, and when the actual dissolution happens, it will kind of benefit us. It will help us to recognize the process.
다디 내가 탑시디 개와 치마를 펜비기 탑 지금 돈 쓴거다 다디 개체슈 개와 치마를 펜비기 탑 지금 돈 쓴거 그랬어 다 개와 치마를 펜비기 탑시지 말자 다 개와 하시 켈렌치 마투바나 아니 탑시디 라렌타르 투게데 데스칼 카운도 왔으라
Yes. So the whole description or explanation about the dissolution process is really to benefit the practitioner for future or the next lifetime. And if you are quite skeptical about the possibility of subsequent and future lifetimes, then the whole description of dissolution process may not benefit you much.
당기샘나 디 소라지여라 나 당부 될 말레콘 당가 오스트레일리아 드라이어스 제르스 쳐졸 드라이어스 라운디 나라다 trobo딘디기 달랍샤 자그러다 지지는 안주 베벨로 쓰인 시그리 지지나다 안 미치당 드라다인 시그라 나 랍샤 갈갸거스라나 캐난 드론이 껴가시고 시르시에요 말다 콘소 가오치 말로 되는 라운게 가시가시 총선다로 아니 양 콘족이 nga라 가시지 nga라 너레스데 nga 가시 랍스 신이 된수 거디 시르시 요말데 야부통 말았어요 되니 가라 nga 딘디 가시지 랍스라 이네 nga 두 스탕이 로추르라 양이 최시로다 최시 nga라 무즈나로 최장 도 시온디 신이 된수 파샤 개왕하시 파샤 되니 가래 지가 내든 숨서지라 대소 파샤는 당이 최 약부지 시하고 좀 싸우니니 시하고라면도 샘나라 소디에서랑가라 개왕하시 파샤 신이 된수 파샤 단다 지기 영가 메타비 거들 다가다 처음에 다가 가오식 말스 다 디슨 파샤는로 다 최직 시하고 좀나 다 원내가 최직시에 메타저레샤스. 이 셈나 디유스로. 진정에 갖도있나 지겨왕하시 켈렌이야 탑시지. 켈렌 두고레스. 가스는 아주 켈렌 마투거레 마도. 겨왕하시 맨 켈렌 마투 차고 말. 겨왕하시 요 말세 등인 저거 겨왕하시 랑기 만통아 준센 주니 겨왕하시 요 말세 라와 마도. 겨왕하시 메비 드비제 남다지 라신 개왕하시 요 말씀이 수치기 중요 말했어. 배나 심죽 센데 징이지 마나. 배나 된두기다 세리바 배센 토시 세리바 약수지 임바나. 개왕하시 요 말씀 수치기 라요 말했어. 단다 바 니 세리도 장요 말 대부분 통요 말다 니 탁전에 랍트고 두스라. 세리바 약수지 임바나. 개왕하시 요 말스 랍진 싸워니네 라요 말스 가서는 매비 판단이 이거라 매비 판단 요 말다 개왕하시 요비 판단마도 매비 판단 싸워니네 요 말스 तदिंगे ज्यादा ज्यादा वंगे पोबा चन लब लब थुग दोस्तरा वंगे दि लब थुग दोस्त सेम ना वंगा दि पोबा दि युंग दोस्तरा
Yes. So when I was you know kind of about to come to Australia as a teacher, probably it was some of my friends approached me and kind of give me some um, kind of advices regarding my future kind of role as a teacher in the institute, new teacher in the institute. So some of my friends told me that, oh, it's better if you do not talk much about the past and future lives. Uh, it's better if you do not talk much about the guru devotion. It's better if you don't talk much about the impermanence of death and so and so. Yeah, impermanence of death and so and so forth. It's better if you don't talk about this, if you don't touch about these topics. Try to teach something else, but not talk about these things. But with my own experience as a teacher for the past 10 years, I came to realize that if I were to really give a genuine Dharma teaching without touching these points, I can't. There isn't a genuine Dharma teaching without touching these crucial points. So therefore, I think whenever I have the opportunity, I try to make sure that people really understand the importance, or rather the significance of these things. For instance, as far as the possibility of past and future life is concerned, um, for right now, it's if you are not able to kind of accept or realize, understand that, it's just because we are not able to really find it. We are not able to still recognize it. So far, nobody has even proved the non-existence of past and future lifetimes. We simply could not accept because we could not see it, right? So there is a distinction between not able to see it and seeing the non-existence of that particular thing. So even the greatest scientists have never proved the non-existence of past and future lifetimes. So therefore, just simply because not seeing something does not mean it is not there. So there is a distinction between not able to see something and seeing the non-existence of something. So simply non-existence of past and future life does not prove the non-existence of past and future lifetime.
दे गाव मार से दे तक मैं खासी खासी तक गाव युंग मारा सरवा हरिश ना मागंग दिन योरा तरवा इन्हें चियों दिन रे मदस तंगा दे योनी इन्हें लाम सोवर मजी त च मंबुशिया के 세라를 만 고급 총이었다. 세라를 라마소르지 슈구요 말이 라마소르지 쉐시야 요 말하다. 칠로레니 라마소르지 최망부시라. 럼부지 가드이나 신이 된수 치원마다와 개원하실 걸성도. 다 망치야 되선다. 메츠 가오시기도. 때 내말에면 쓰라.
Yes. So, so therefore, some people may not really kind of like to hear about these topics, such as impermanence, past and future life, guru devotion, so on and so forth. But when having the opportunity to listen to many of the teachings of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I had the even more opportunity to attend and listen to his teachings after I come here, because in Sera, Rinpoche won't visit much. So therefore, when I come here, I had the more opportunity to listen to his teachings. And then whenever I had the opportunity, Rinpoche would always focus us and teach about the impermanence, guru devotion, and past and future lives. He would always stress and highlight this. So therefore, I thought, well, what my friends would suggested earlier was not quite true.
Thank you.
Okay, so to page 12, or on the screen. For my two types of merits, vaster space that I've amassed from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds, wisdom, eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings. May I please all the Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and may the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time. By even this graded path to enlightenment, completed due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may they always be assisted by the mighty ones. May oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Jancho Sencho Rinpoche, Mage Panam Kegyurche, Kapan Yampa Me Payam, Gone Gondu Pelwar Shor.